Hello everyone, it's Brian, and over the next couple of minutes I wanted to talk about hindsight bias. Hindsight is the I knew it. It was so obvious. When we look back in history, many events appear like they were right in front of us, but at the time they were very difficult to predict. Let me give you a few examples of hindsight bias from my own personal life. Let's just suppose that I'm driving home from Montreal with the family. There's a quarter tank of gas left in the car, and we're almost home. We're quickly approaching the en route, and Val suggests that I get off and fill up the car. I look at the amount of gas that we have, how many kilometers we have left, and I figure we've got 40K of extra gas in the tank. I say, no, we're gonna go for it. What happens? Well, we go smooth sailing. There's no traffic, and we make it home with 37 kilometers left in the tank. Was I right? Who knows? But I got to say, I knew it. And in hindsight, I made the right decision. Imagine, my wife Val and I are hosting the neighborhood barbecue, and she sends me to the grocery store to get 8 packs of sausages. But while I'm in the sausage aisle, I do the math. I figure that nobody eats more than 2 sausages, kid or adult. So I quickly reduce the amount from 8 to 6 packs of sausages because I know. But what happens later that night around 8:30 is I'm putting together a cheese platter for a whole bunch of hungry kids. Why? Well, I didn't account that I would drop 3 hot dogs, and I didn't account that I would get distracted and have 3 of them burnt. I didn't know, and in that case, Val was able to say, Brian, I just knew that that would happen. So why do I bring this up? Well, hindsight bias riddles the investment world. Things appear so obvious in the rearview mirror. Was the financial crisis obvious? Was the dominance of Google obvious? Was even the election of Donald Trump obvious in hindsight? What's challenging is looking forward and having an idea of what things will look like. It's not apparent when you're looking from the present into the future. So how do you contend with the uncertainty of the future? It certainly doesn't make sense to bring an umbrella everywhere you go on every single day. So what you need to do is formally or informally come up with a fashion to look outside, to make predictions about the world. So how do we do it with the rain? Well, we wake up, we look at the weather app, we look outside, we see if it's gray. We make an educated guess. Sometimes we're right, and sometimes we're wrong, but we need to come up with a process around it. Let's use blackjack as an example. We'll use blackjack because we can be a little bit more number orientated. Suppose you're at the casino, you're sitting down with another fun-loving gambling person, somebody with a little bit more spirit. You're both dealt 18. So what we need to know about that is there is a 77% chance that if you hit, you will go bust. So you, being the smart, calm, collected person, understand and you stick on the 18. Whereas the fun-loving, yee-haw gambler next to you hits, gets a 3, and scores that blackjack. So who in the end made the right decision? In fact, the fun-loving gambler did not make the right decision because there was a 23% chance that they were going to make it to the 21. You were the 77. We need to play the odds over and over and over to put you in favor. It doesn't mean that every single time you're going to win, but over time, it puts you in the best position for success. The portfolio managers overseeing your investments are no different than the calm, calculating gambler. They're positioning your money according to the most likely and probable scenario. This chart gives you an example of how Alfred Lamb's team, who oversees the evolution program, looks at how the economy's future growth may look. They look at it in probabilities and allocate as such. Looking out from today, they see the likelihood of a rapid economic expansion at 20%. a slow recovery at 50%, and a weak recovery at 30%. While they do acknowledge that things could be sluggish, they want to position your portfolio for the most probable scenario, which at 70% at a slow or rapid expansion is the way to go. Hindsight bias can also lead to a feeling of regret, which can push you towards following the conventional wisdom or what's worked in the recent past, also known as the recency bias. Since the lows of March 2020, we've seen the FANG stocks in Microsoft shoot up to new levels. But is now the right time to change tactics and to allocate your money towards those stocks? Perhaps, but is Apple really worth the entire stock market value of the UK economy? Maybe. I know it would feel right to do it today, but it may not actually be the right time. Professor of psychology Neil Reese proposes that people look at hindsight in a downward counterfactual sense. What do I mean by that? Well, looking at it as what could have gone wrong, not what could I have missed out on. Imagine you're thinking back and saying to yourself, man, I should have gone and taken my MBA at Western University. I would have got a better job and I would have made more money. Instead of looking at things like that, look at it as I stayed in Toronto instead. I was able to meet my wife and start a wonderful family that I have today. This helps lower the regret that hindsight can have with folks. The most challenging part of investing is the emotional aspect to it. I don't think we'll ever be able to brush off declines or not get excited when that statement has that nice number in front of it. But we can attempt to temper our reactions around it, knowing that we are on a plan that has the highest likelihood of success. We don't know what the future will hold, but like that calm and collected gambler, we are putting ourselves in the best position to realize our goals. In conclusion to hindsight bias, let's have some fun with this. In the details below, you'll see that there's a hyperlink to a form. It's a survey with 4 different questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions, which today I think are challenging to predict. But in hindsight, I think they'll be quite obvious. So, number 1, who is going to win the US federal election? Is it going to be Biden or is it going to be Trump? Number 2, in 2021, will Justin Trudeau be our Prime Minister again? Number 3, from an investment standpoint, in 6 months, on April 1st, will the S&P 500, US stock market, be higher or lower than where it is today? And lastly, will schools in Ontario be open January 2021? I think when we look back on all these things, they're going to appear obvious. But at the time, today, I'm just not so sure. Thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to the video, and I will absolutely share the results of the survey once the future becomes the past.